In this video lecture, we'll be talking about key concepts of Piaget's theory, the four stages of cognitive development. So, Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development suggests that children move through four stages of mental development. His theory focuses not only on understanding how children acquire knowledge, but also on understanding the nature of intelligence. And he believed that children take an active role in learning process, acting much like little scientists as they perform experiments, makes observation, and learn about the world. As kids interact with the world around them, they continually add new knowledge, build upon existing knowledge, and adapt previously held ideas to accommodate new information. So, Jean Piaget worked so much about this developmental theory. And for your information, he based his observation and conclusion with the kids around him, especially his own daughter and nephew. So he did these observations and reinforces building hypothesis that children's mind were not merely smaller versions of adult mind. Instead, he came up with a lot of findings about how kids' intelligence works. So he came up with the four stages, and based on his observation, he concluded that children are not less intelligent than adults. They simply think differently. And in fact, Albert Einstein called Piaget's discovery so simple, only a genius could have thought of it. So you could imagine how Piaget came up with this brilliant and so genius thought of how kids really cognitively functions. So up until this point in history, children were largely treated simply as smaller versions of adults. Piaget was one of first to identify that the way the children think is different from the way adult thinks. And instead, he proposed intelligence is something that grows and develops through series of stages. And he added, older children do not just think more quickly than younger children, he suggested. Instead, there are both qualitative and quantitative differences between the thinking of young children versus older children. Piaget's stages of theory describe the cognitive development of children. Cognitive development involves changes in cognitive process and abilities. So he emphasizes that each kids, they are unique. They are unique in different ways, and their cognitive ability and capability is different from each other. You know, among early childhood educators, we try to teach or educate children not based on the age level. Like, for example, 2 years old, 3 years old, they have to learn this, they have to learn that. No, it doesn't work that way. In my actual practice here in Canada, we do not educate them based on age. Instead, we assess them cognitively and we give them tasks or activities based on the appropriate cognitive level of development they are into. It doesn't matter if they are 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, as long as the cognitive level of development is ready to do a certain degree of challenge in activities, we give it to them, we provide it to them. So here, when we prepare lessons for our kids, we do not prepare lessons for all 2 years old, all 3 years old, all 4 years old. No. What we do is we assess them and we individually and personally prepare lectures or activities for each of the kids based on the cognitive development. Mostly, of course, are enjoyable activities. We include play, art crafts, and all that in the activities that we are giving them in order to nurture whatever strength they have in terms of their cognitive aspect. So in Piaget's view, early cognitive development involves processes based upon actions and later progresses into changes in mental operations. So, like I said, they learn things and do things differently, depends cognitively. Okay. And I have here a very useful and very practical illustration of the stages of cognitive development by Piaget. This really helps a lot of students to understand the concept that Piaget would like to convey, and you can compare the 4 stages of cognitive development out of this illustration. Here, for birth to 2 years, we call it the sensory stage. And as you see, the baby's holding the glass with water. And sensory helps these ages learn things and develop concepts cognitively. Under pre-operational stage, 2 to 7 years old, they already develop an abstract way of thinking about things, of learning things. They can use imagination, they use abstract thinking. Whereas under concrete operational stage, they have to really see concrete things in order for them to develop certain concept or idea about some things. It has to be concrete, no longer abstract. While in the formal operational stage, which is 12 years old and above, they already have the complete formal operational way of learning or thinking about things, and they integrate everything in their manner of thinking. They use reasoning, they use logic, they combine abstract and concrete in order for them to arrive in a more complete learning. So let's try to take a look at each of the stages. First is the sensory motor stage, and here you can see this is from birth until 2 years of age. So we have I included major characteristics and changes in development. The infant knows the world through their movement and sensation. So through their movement and sensation, I know, for a fact that even during birth, bonding between the mother and child is very important because of the skin to skin contact. And according to experts, their sense of smell is really strong during those days when they cannot yet see clearly. They can smell the smell of their mother. That's why if the mother carries them, they stop crying because they can smell the bodily scent of the mother. Children learn about the world through basic actions such as sucking, grasping, looking, and listening. So these are very significant. That is why if you learned, even during pregnancy, we can introduce music so the baby inside the womb can listen to the music that the mother or the parents are playing, and it is said that they can learn through that. Okay, infants learn that things continue to exist even though they cannot be seen. So we have this so-called object of permanence. Like, for example, babies love peekaboo because it gives them the concept of object permanency. When you close, when you hide and then remove the object, and they can see your face, or they can see the object that that you have hidden, then they develop the understanding that there is object permanence. They are separate beings from the people and object around them. So they have that kind of concept. They realize that their actions can cause things to happen in the world around them. So, according to Piaget, during this earliest stage of cognitive development, infants and toddlers acquire knowledge through sensory experiences and manipulating objects. That is why we choose toys to give them, because this can impact their growth and development. Say, example, among infants, we put those what do you call that, the hanging toys with different colors, squeezy toys which can develop their sense of hearing, grasping as well, rattle toys with colors, right? All of this are helping them to develop their sensory experiences. So a child's entire experience at the earliest period of this stage occurs through basic reflexes, senses, and motor responses, which are very essential in their development. So again, in the workplace where I am working right now, we have an infant classroom. I know some of you may not have the grasp of the idea that I am giving you, but here we have infant class already, and my workplace, the school where I am working, we start to accept infant from 6 months beyond, and yeah, we try to. The teachers in the infant room, they come up with lesson plans also, or curriculum that will target the development of the infant in terms of the senses, reflexes, senses, and motor response. And it was great. Like during the first few encounters that I have with them when I was studying here to become an early childhood educator, I am so amazed of how schools help in the development of these babies. Imagine they are babies, but they go to school, they do art crafts, they listen to music, they dance, they learn activities, routines, and they are so lucky, I can say. So for the second stage, we have the pre-operational stage. Major characteristics: children begin to think symbolically and learn to use words and pictures to represent objects. So they try to imagine abstract things and try their best to come up with words and pictures to represent the object. Like this, some kids would say, "Wawa," and they try to interpret water as wawa. Then later on, they develop their speech, their speaking, their words, and come up with the correct word that will describe the abstract thought that they have, okay? Children at this stage tend to be egocentric and struggle to see things from the perspective of others. So we cannot say that these kids are not really getting what I'm trying to teach them or what I'm trying to tell them. They couldn't understand, and I don't know why. That shouldn't be an answer, because here Piaget emphasizes that they still have struggle to see things from others' perspective. Yeah, we see this as water. We can drink it. We can make juice out of it. We can mix things on it. But the only concept that they have is it's water and it's clear and it's tasteless. So, and they don't know those terminology. They don't know what the meaning of those. They just know that this is wawa. Okay. While they are getting better with language and thinking, they still tend to think about things in very concrete terms. Okay. So they just see they have abstract thinking, but whatever is there in concrete terms, that's just it literally. Okay, the foundations of language development may have been laid during the previous stage, but in the emergence of language, that is one of the major hallmark of the pre-operational stage of development. Well, it's true at 2 years old and between 2 years old to 7 years old, this is the stage where the child develops language skills. They start to talk, they start to speak words, and then later on phrases and then sentences, and they develop vocabulary. And you'll be surprised how fast it is for them to be able to talk and communicate, because they are like sponges. They can easily learn things. Like here, you wouldn't believe it at first. My students, I have diverse students. I have Chinese, Russian, French, of course, Canadian, English. What else do I have? I have Japanese, Saudian. And you know, these kids in school speak English, but they have their own languages at home. So if you count the number of language they speak, they have two, three languages, and they easily adopt to it. They easily learn because according to experts, young minds between those ages, they are like sponges. They suck everything and learn things easily. That is why it's so amazing that they'll be able to adjust from one environment to another. They know when to speak English. They know when to speak Russian or French. You know, when parents are coming to pick them up, they talk to the parents in a different language, and I was like, what was that? So it's really very surprising, but it's true, and I have seen it every day in my workplace here. So the third is the concrete operational stage, which starts 7 to 11 years old. We have here the major characteristics and developmental changes. First, during this stage, children begin to think logically about concrete events. So they try to use logical thinking and reasoning already. They try to weigh things over and compare, describe, and determine the differences of these things. So they begin to understand the concept of conservation, that the amount of liquid in a short, wide cup is equal to that in a tall, skinny glass, for example. And their thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very concrete. Like what you see is what you get. Okay. Children begin using inductive logic or reasoning from specific information to general principles. So they start to come up with their reasoning, logical thinking, and trying to classify, organize things in order from specific to general. So while children are still very concrete and literal in their thinking at this point in development, they become much more adept to using logic. The egocentrism of the previous stage begins to disappear at this time as kids becomes better at thinking and how the other people might view a situation. While thinking becomes more or much more logical during the concrete operational state, it can also be very rigid. Kids at this point in development tend to struggle with abstract and hypothetical concepts. So when you give them abstract thoughts, at times they struggle because abstract thinking is sometimes, or for them, it's very what do you call this, it's exaggerated at times, and when you see it concretely, the comparison for them is kind of different. The same is true with hypothetical concepts, so they get a little bit confused. So it's just up to the adults, parents, significant others, educators, to facilitate or lead them towards more understanding of the abstract things and the hypothetical things that we are feeding them. The ability to thinking about abstract ideas and situation hallmarks the operational stage of cognitive development. The ability to systematically plan on reasoning about hypothetical situations are also critical abilities that emerges during that stage. And we have here the formal operation stage, which is from 12 and above. Major characteristics, like I mentioned a while ago, at this stage, the adolescent or young adult begins to think abstractly and reason about hypothetical problems. That's why you cannot outsmart them. Most of the time, they have thousands of way or manner of reasoning, and they are good in that. So the abstract thought emerges at this age. Teens begins to think more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. So they are now going to school. They are learning a lot about history, about news, about current events, and all that. And sometimes we will be surprised that they know a lot of concepts already, and beyond what we think they could. Politics, social, ethical, and all that. And then they begin to use deductive logic or reasoning from general principle to a specific information. So those are the stages of growth and development according to Piaget. And I believe that's a very specific and concise discussion of that. I know you've been taking this, you've been studying this since even high school, but I'm telling you, as much as it is so important and significant among educators and parents, this is equally very important among nurses like us, because we tend to understand clients, patients, especially in the psychiatric field, when we get the grasp of the hows and whys relative to the concepts of growth and development, not just of Piaget, but the rest of them. Okay. And here, I wanted to share the following are some of the factors that influence how children learn and grow, specifically still according to Piaget. So Piaget identified schemas. Schema describes both the mental and physical actions involved in understanding and knowing. Schemas are categories of knowledge that help us to interpret and understand the world. In his view, a schema includes both a category of knowledge and process obtaining that knowledge. As experiences happen, this new information is used to modify, add to, or change previously existing schemas. Okay, say for example, you've shown this wallet to, or let's take the keys. You've shown this key to a young child, and you told the child, this is the key. So the schema of the child will teach him or her and will give him the concept of retaining that the key looks like this. Okay. And the child will absorb it and it'll be stored in his mind. And this new information will store there, and he or she will forever remember the key like this until such time that he or she will see another version of key, like for example, the key in the car. And so that time, the schema that the child has will be modified, and there will be added knowledge and change of previously existing schema that was inculcated in his or her mind. Okay. And another is assimilation. Assimilation is the process of taking in new information into our already existing schema. And the process is somewhat subjective because we tend to modify experiences and information slightly to fit in with our pre-existing beliefs. In the example above, for example, we have another example a while ago, I forgot to mention. If you show a dog and labeling it dog, in the case of assimilating the animal into child's dog schema, then the child will, in his schema, he will learn that that's a dog, and there will be assimilation, and so it'll be inculcated in his mind that the dog looks like this. So if you have shown a small puppy, then the child will always remember that dog looks like that and the color is white. However, as the child grows and you get to expose the child in different kinds and types of dog, big, small, black, brown, then that schema is assimilated and there will be added knowledge on the part of the child. Okay, so another we have accommodation. Another part of adaptation involves changing or altering our existing schemas in light of new information, a process known as accommodation. Accommodation involves modifying existing schemas or ideas as a result of new information or new experiences. New schemas may also be developed during this process. So remember, in the cognitive stages of development, Piaget emphasizes that these three goes along together in order to add, modify existing knowledge that the child from each stage of development have acquired. And so this is very important for you to know. So these are the references that I had in coming up with the lecture. I hope that you've learned something from that. And if you have some questions, you can ask our team, the psych professors for Lorma colleges. Yeah, I hope that you'll be reading more of these stages of growth and development. This will help you so much in understanding not only patients in psychiatric field, but also the patients that you'll be encountering in all areas of health provision. Thank you and have a good day.